Calendar.
Just contact me as we get close.
Okay.
You're in meeting now.
We are on, okay. It is 6:30 and we'll call this meeting to order. And if we could start with the pledge. Oh, can we, wait, are we good?
There we go.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And if we can have roll call.
Mayor Smith,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Schwartz,
Here.
Trustee Valentine, Trustee Check,
Here.
Trustee Head,
Here.
Trustee Hunter, here, Trustee Stelter.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. We can move on to approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any changes or anything they would like to make before I ask for a motion for approval? Okay, seeing none, somebody,
Move to approve the agenda.
okay. Second.
I'll second.
I just never look over it. So, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And for announcements, I do not have any announcements. Does any other trustee have announcements besides Mayor Pro Tem Schwartz appreciations?
No appreciations tonight.
And no appreciations, okay. We are gonna skip over announcements. And this is the portion of the meeting where we open the meeting up to public comment on any topic that is not already on the agenda. And we give participants in the room or on Zoom 3 minutes and please ask them to come up to the podium, state your name, whether you live in town or out of town, and you have 3 minutes to speak on anything you'd like. And we do have a sign-in sheet that we ask people to sign into, which asks for a little bit more information that we don't make public. So anyone in the room that would like to speak on something not on the agenda? Seeing none? Anyone on Zoom who'd like to speak for 3 minutes on anything not on the agenda? Okay, sounds good, thank you. So let's move on to consent agenda. We have 2 minutes, the first for May 13th, regular meeting, and May 27th, regular meeting, and we have June 10th disbursements. Any comments, questions? Yes.
I just have, I think the times are wrong on both of the minutes. I see 6:05. So I think it was 6:35 and then 6:30 on 5:27.
We'll correct those. Thank you for catching it.
Anyone else have any questions? Okay, Trustee Valentine, I'm sorry, Trustee Stelter, any questions from you?
No, ma'am.
Okay. With that in mind, could I get a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda with the changes suggested by Mayor Pro Tem Schwartz. Second.
All right, seconded by Trustee Heck. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you. So we have 3 staff reports. The first is the town administrators, which for me, trying to keep track, starts on page 21 of the agenda packet. And it is information on money we have and our budget as of May 31st, I believe. And I don't know, oh, yeah, you're there. Hi, Administrator Nguyen. Would you like to speak on this?
Yeah, Mayor, thank you very much. So I actually owe you guys, or I'll start by saying I have a brief report tonight, but I owe you a second quarter report, and that'll be at our next meeting. I do have a few things that I want to go over, some good news, bad news, and I'll start with the bad news. Corey, our Public Works Director, resigned last week, and he's left on good terms and is eligible for rehire. And we wish him the best in his future endeavors and what he chooses to do next. In that time, we've also promoted Nikki to our Public Works Director. So I'm not sure if Nikki's in the room right now, but she is our new Public Works Director, and that was effective last week. I also have some more, what is, following good news, bad news. Good news, our Federal Highway Administration grant, the Safe Streets for All, has finally come back from central office in Washington, D.C. So when I get back from vacation, I'm going to get this contract signed and ready to go so that we can get an RFP out and then select our contractor. This is that prioritization of our next street projects. So Safe Streets for All, that federal grant has finally been released. Better late than never, I guess. And then finally, you guys, I've been sending emails about this, but I think it's good for the public to hear as well. Our Fifth and Grand, I had a meeting with CDOT last week to make sure that our funding could still be secured. They let me know that if we can get our temporary construction easements, which we're still working on, completed, then we won't be able to go to construction this year. There's just no way. However, we can get an RFP out, get our contractor selected, and be first in line for spring of next year. Our funding is still secure as long as we can go out to bid by August 1st. So we've been working to get temporary construction easements. I now have the deputy treasurer trying to get those construction easements, working with Nikki as well to get them finalized. What people aren't realizing is that if you don't sign this TCE, yeah, you might push our project back, but the next step for them is that we can pursue eminent domain, which means we condemn their property, we take their property, we build the project, and then after we're done with the project, we give it back. If we have to go that route, it's going to be really expensive. So rather than do that, we have offered $500 for each TCE that is signed. So in the case of like Paonia Bread Works, there are two properties owned by the same person, so he'll get $1,000. So we're trying to get those done. As long as we get them done within the next week and get them all signed, we should be able to go to bid by August 1st, and our funding will be secured. So like I said, I've had good news, bad news, and on anything that I presented so far, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them right now.
Questions? Part-time Schwartz?
Yeah, hi, Town Administrator Nguyen. How many total construction easements do we need and how many do we have secured thus far?
So we were at 7, but after we did some changes that property owner wanted, he is no longer even in the picture. We don't need one from him, so we're down to 6. Since then, we've had 1 signed, and before I left, I think there was a second one being signed. But Nikki might be able to tell you more if she's heard anything from Kaja, but I can tell you we've started the process of documenting everything that has been done to secure those TCEs as of last week.
Yes.
So maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah, sure, just one. One, just one. One of the 6, so 1 down, 5 to go? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thanks. Other questions? Trustees, okay. All right, thank you, and keep going, Administrator Nguyen.
Okay, thank you. I do want to go over our disbursements. The first page that you're looking at, we are pretty healthy, and so I've been submitting some grant reimbursements, and because of that, it's pushed our pooled cash up. So pooled cash used to be money market account, but I'm getting ready to make a financial change where all of our funding, all of our revenue goes into pooled cash, and then we put in funding that we need for like our operating account. We make bi-weekly transfers to just cover that amount. It's a good internal controls process to help against fraud. For example, what we've been doing for many years is all of our revenue was going into operating, and we were also cutting checks from operating. Well, every time we cut a check, if we have an ill-minded player, they can take that check and then try to use it to make their car payment. And so then that account would always be hit, which is terrifying to me. So if we move it back into pooled cash and just transfer like we do for our already do for our payroll account, and we do that with operating, it'll be a safer process for all of us, just to protect our funding. But so what you can see is I've already put in, if you go to the next slide, please. So this is our updated grant tracking program. The strikeouts mean that we have exhausted or closed those grants. Yay, I can take some things off. A couple of other things to note is we've already pulled one big chunk that wasn't on here because it was a reimbursable grant, or really it was a, hang on one second. So I'm sorry, there was somebody in the back, it was my mom in the background, and it was it was hard for me to think. But we've already sought reimbursement for $240,000. That has come into the pooled cash account already. It was for a reimbursement for the design and engineering grant for our water improvement plan that we are closing on that loan on Thursday. So you'll start seeing some of this money come in. What I haven't done yet is for a hydro study. And if you go down to the bottom of that page of our grant tracking, you can see that we still have funding that we have to get from our from the CWCB for that hydro study. I plan to do that when I return. We did get brush clearing completed. And so with the brush clearing completed, we can finally finish our hydrogeological study. So those are all things that are in the works, and I'm really happy that they're moving forward. If you want to go to the next one, we are starting to see our revenue come in, which is a really good thing. We still are awaiting quite a bit of cash for property taxes yet from the county and the state. So we're still waiting for those things to come in. But if you go down, we should be about 41% complete at the end of May. With our fiscal year. And so we're getting pretty close. Keep going down to the bottom. What I really want to see is the next page where it shows that we have a surplus. So we have a net surplus within our general fund of a little over, I think it was $89,000. So that's a good thing. We still have some revenue to come in, and we are 41% complete with the year. If you want to go to the real one I want to show on expenses is our sanitation. If you guys could go to sanitation, that'd be great. It's going to be one of the last ones in disbursements. But you can see we're pretty much on target, 40% within all of these different departments. We still have some accounts receivables for the building department for permits that'll help to balance those expenses out. Keep going. Enterprise. Okay, so if we look at this one, go to the bottom. It'll be this end of this second page on this one. We have a net surplus, and this is because our net income. It's because we did receipt in quite a bit of reimbursements from that $240,000 for the design and engineering from the water authority. I do have another $60,000 in, but we can't get that money until we close on the loan Thursday, and then we'll have that $60,000 from that D&E grant. But you can see we're at a net income. Last month this was showing closer to like a net loss, but now we're at a net income because we did all the site work in advance of receiving the loan for the tank relining project. Now we're at a net income, so that's a good thing. We'll continue getting these reimbursements. If you go to the next, the wastewater, this one is also at a net, is also at a net income. End of the page. There we go. So we're still at a net income for wastewater. It's not going to be a net income when we're all said and done. Aerators are not yet on this expense report. So once those aerators come in, and I don't want to steal Nikki's thunder because she'll probably talk about them, but I do believe they've been ordered and will be on their way. But once we get that invoice, we're gonna probably be closer to a net loss. If we go to the sanitation fund, but overall we still have fund balance, so we're not operating in a deficit. We're gonna have to pull from those fund balances. Sanitation, though, is a problem. And I've sent some emails about this, that we're going to have to do a mid-year rate increase, only because our tipping fees kind of went out of the, I mean, just crazy, from from an additional $5 a ton to $15 more a ton to tip all of our trash trucks. The other issue that we've had is we've had some emergency repairs, like a new transmission on the garbage truck, and those things add up. And that's where we're operating right now at a net loss. Thankfully, we ended the last 2 years with a net income. So we had this fund balance that we were able to pull from. And that is it for my for the budget to actuals. Unless, and I'm happy to entertain any questions you may have.
Questions?
I have some questions. Well, okay, first of all, thanks for explaining about the operating cash. What I like about us, not only it safeguards our money and just better internal controls, but right now there's 0% interest rate in our operating fund versus over 4% in the pooled cash. So right now we've brought in over 75,000 in interest just year to date for the town, which is significant. So I really like that we're moving in that direction. And Stefan, I did notice that in all of our total UBB accounts, we're up about 600,000. And you said 200 of 240 or so was from a grant reimbursement. Do you know what the rest was from? It might have been in the pooled cash too.
Yeah, and so we did close out a number of grants on that first grant page. You saw that we closed those grants out. And I was finally able to take or get that reimbursement. Some of them had been sitting for a year. And we weren't able to do it until we closed like the housing needs assessment. I was able to bring that cash in. There was also, we also received a significant amount of our property taxes in the last month and a half. And so that hit our accounts as well. And people are using more water, so significantly more water. And so when we were able to pull that into our general ledger, it also showed a lot more cash coming in.
Okay, thanks. I do want to point out for everyone, we have hit our goal for dog tags. We're at 103% or $410, which means 41 dogs have been licensed. It's a lot more than ever.
More than ever.
And then finally, Stefan, I was here, you had addressed my concern about, I had noticed that the building department, we've only brought in about 9,700 in income, but our expenses are about 14,000. So that just shows that we have about 6,000 or so in accounts receivable.
Yeah, and we so there's a couple of things here. So we do have some accounts receivable. It's not quite 6,000. We may have to go back to the negotiating table with the city of Delta for our building inspector. They bill us a flat rate and it's based on the entire year. So if we don't get as many building permits, we're still paying that set amount regardless of the service we receive. So it may be that we have to adjust it, but we're really happy with Jason and his building inspection services. So I really don't want to lose him, but at the same time, we don't want to operate the building department with subsidies from the general fund.
Great. Those are all the questions I had.
Anyone else have questions? Trustee Stelter, any questions?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We can move on to the police chief's report.
Okay. For May, the department's been working with Public Works to identify some high risk, high traffic roadways most benefit from roadway striping, painting, general repair. When we want to do that, what we're looking for public safety is high concentrations of pedestrian and bicycle vehicle traffic. Areas where we may have limited visibility because of parking issues or dust or something like that, that we can identify ahead of time, let Public Works know, and then they can start working on a plan to fix some of those. We started that process. Public Works is working on it, I'm sure she'll keep you guys on that as they go. All department personnel completed incident command system training levels 100, 200, and 700. This is now going to be required training for first responders who are going to be involved in multi-agency operations. So if we have a large fire, and we're working with other agencies, particularly the federal agencies are going to want everybody who's involved with that to have that training. So our department went ahead, we got that out of the way now. Most cadets take some of that training in the academy, but we refreshed that, we took it a couple steps further, and we have those. Sergeant Henderson attended firearms instructor, red dot site instructor training. That provides us with a second firearms instructor who's also now able to instruct us on red dot sites, which we ordered last year. We have not received yet. When we get those, they're back ordered. When we get those, we'll now have an instructor where we can get everybody qualified on those and get those to use. We also collaborated with County K and NIST to hold a first responder demonstration at each school. This is something we started this a few years ago, and it's kind of morphed into a little more involved process now, and we're really happy everybody's on board. But this year we were able to get North Fork EMS, Cardinal Parks and Wildlife, U.S. Forest Service, the Delta County Sheriff's Department, and ourselves were all able to attend with vehicles. And what we do is the students come out in their classroom groups, and they're able to ask questions to all those agencies, look at their equipment. We get to meet them, hand out stickers. It's just kind of a way for us to get to know the students, and then we get to know everybody else. The thing I really like about this is that the schools are on board. They work with us on scheduling that works for them. And the other nice part of this, especially with some of these other agencies, where they don't see them every day, but a lot of our students were really happy to see Forest Service and Parks and Wildlife, because they only see them, occasionally if they're hunting or something like that, but we see their trucks driving in town, so it was really nice to have that collaboration. We just want to thank all those agencies, including the Sheriff's Department, for coming up and participating in that with us. And the last thing I'll add is, as of today, our dog tags are at 46. In 2024, for the entire year, we had 23, so we've doubled that today at the midway point. That was something, one of our goals. We kind of looked at ways to do that, and thanks to us, everybody, including admin, Public Works, especially Public Works working in the park. They've been really good about when people have questions, letting them know, yeah, dogs do have to be on a leash. If you would, please go down and register if you live here in town. Admin's been really good about pushing that info out to us as well, so everybody helped out on that.
Thank you. Any questions for Chief Manager? Okay, thank you. Moving on to Public Works.
So we are just about done with gutter cleaning. We only have the parade route left. We saved that for very last, so we don't have to do it twice right before the parade. And about 3 other small streets that we're going to use the big sweeper on. So we are planning to do those early morning, and then we'll be completely done with gutter and street cleaning, just to start over in the fall. But at least it is working. I think the process worked really well this year, so we're about there. Park maintenance, it's in full swing. We're running into some issues, which I will talk about later, with our watering system. However, we did purchase a few water cannons that we can get spot watering, or where the infrastructure has failed, we can still get water on it. So we were able to do that, and it's working great. So I actually really like that. Grand Avenue watering and tree watering in the parks as well. We had to develop a process for that. It took many, many admin hours and lots of collaboration between everybody to get these beautiful flowers on Grand Avenue. The tree board also planted a tree on Arbor Day that we take care of as well. So it became a big process, and it's going well. So hopefully we don't kill all these plants. Let's see, we went up on the mountain several times. We have a big project going up there, like Stephen was saying, the hydrogeological study. We had to take quite a few biologists, the Forest Service, contractors. They do studies. They determined that we weren't in any areas that the violet monarch butterfly, I think is which one it is, was not there, or the milkweed that they eat. So we were all good. It ties into the first picture here, but we'll get to that. We also have at least our parks person actually was able to go and get her CDL permit. So she passed that, and she will be going in August to truck riding school. So that was pretty exciting for Bailey. Trash truck issues. So Stephanie kind of mentioned it earlier. We had a transmission issue a few months ago. Our latest ones has been the hydraulic cylinder on the back that actually tips the truck to empty it. Was leaking a lot. Turns out they are now obsolete, so we had to find something else. We are still working on it. This is probably a surprise to Steph right now, but we will still be working on that. It still slowly closes off it, so it's very unsafe. So we are continuously trying to fix the trash truck. But with the good news, bad news that he was doing, we were able to get a can lift as well that will maybe help out later with trash. So we got that working. The GoCo training, so GoCo funding is something through the Colorado Lottery that does a lot of grants for parks and open spaces. So Bailey and I went to that was down at Bill Hills, and we're able to talk with that group about how those fundings work. We are a very small community, so getting those can be a little difficult, but they opened our eyes to other funding that we can help with parks. Especially things like, I know everybody is very curious about the replacement of the merry-go-round. And our plan is to replace it with a merry-go-round. So, but however, they are very pleased. So we've got plans in the works trying to get that done. Then the electrical repair at the park is complete as of today. So that is good. There is now electrical at the park. Now the live fireworks, we'll see. We just plugged it in today, so I haven't heard any complaints, so I hope no news is good news. But that is all complete. That involved the skate park, the stage, a transformer, and the large gazebo barbecue area. So it was quite a bit of work, and she was able to get it done in about a week and a half once she was able to get going. So she did a great job. So along with going up on the mountain several times, like Stefan was saying, the hydrogeological study asked for these paths to be cut or trimmed throughout our spring basin area. So the company that we hired, he started on the 30th. He was able to finish within a weekend. But these were the first few pictures. This is Lake Fork. So it was just that much brush clearing is really all they need. It was all done by hand. So that went well. And I have pictures of all the rest that will go in next months. Apple Valley playground chips, those are complete. We were able to get to almost the minimum of the 9 inches, which I think is leaps and bounds better than it was. I didn't even realize that playground chips could be squishy because ours was always so low. It is very, very, like, it just deads that impact. It's really nice. And I think it's sharpened up the park quite a bit. So that is done. And we will do Lee's Park in the fall. So we gotta do a little bit more work there. So more chips to come, but the 2 main parks are done. Public Works also did a tree trimming training with the tree board, which is a tongue twister. And they were able to train us up on how best to cut branches, where to cut them so you don't damage the tree, where they can heal themselves, kind of how to maintain newer, immature trees as well. So that was pretty interesting, and Tom was able to give us some pretty good information. We had a patch job on 2nd Street. We had a water break here in February. And I'm sure anybody who's driven down 2nd Street, that pothole was pretty hefty for a while. We were trying to get it packed in there as much as we can, and these 2 guys were able to do the patch job. I ran over it the other day, and it's actually pretty smooth. We did a pretty good job. So you can definitely thank Public Works for that one. Here's a big one. So we had a sewer incident, spill seepage into Minnesota Creek. This is a manhole that is just east of the Meadowbrook subdivision. So up there kind of by the nursing home. This is the first manhole that comes in that brings all of those communities together. It was rather packed. That's the second picture on the side there of your wipes and gloves and toilet paper. So things that go down the toilet don't just disappear. Someone had to crawl in a hole and touch this and get it out by hand. So this is what happens when we're flushing things that we shouldn't. They plugged that manhole. You can see where it leaked out. We ended up having to call the state. We had to call the spill line. It was a pretty big deal. We had to call emergency services to come jet these lines. It became a thing. So just kind of a little public service there. Please don't flush anything down the toilet that should not. So that's that one. So back to the sprinkler issues that we've been running into. This is a sprinkler line that broke at Apple Valley right next to the tennis courts and it flooded it instantly. It's a 2.5 inch line that then we couldn't find parts for, because who has 2.5 inch lines? 2, 3, or 4, but 2.5 it was. So we fixed that one. The picture on the right there is how that's our ditch box to water the park at Lee's and Town Park. It gets extremely packed full of mud. We have to clean that out. So we were able to do that. We also just built a new lid for it that was pretty rotted. And so we're trying to figure out a better way to water because our infrastructure is pretty rough. And finally, the bathrooms at the park are done. They are open. They're just, there's small little touches that need done, but those can be done while they're open as well. We need to paint the front, relabel men's and women's, but you can still read it. The soap dispensers that we bought don't fit in the holes. And so we're figuring out something there. So that's been our only vandalism so far was the soap. Somebody threw soap everywhere. So I guess that's the least I can ask for. And then this.
Questions? Questions for Nikki?
Awesome.
Yeah, great stuff. I just have, so, you see on packages, it says wipes that are flushable, ain't so.
They're not, yes.
No wipe is flushable. Okay,
Yeah,
just for the record.
exactly.
And, Trustee Stelter, did you have any questions?
No, ma'am.
Hey, Administrator Nguyen, did you have anything?
No, I want to reiterate that because I'm the one that had to write the nasty gram to say stop flushing wipes. Because even though they say they are flushable, they are not. Dude wipes are also not flushable, and neither are nitrile gloves. So if you're wearing a glove that might for some sort of medical care, they are not flushable. Please don't do it. It's what caused this blockage.
Thank you for the clarification. Okay. With that, thank you very much. That's a lot of progress. Appreciate all of it. Thank you. So we'll move on to the public hearing, which is consideration of approval of a new hotel and restaurant liquor license for Bird Harvest LLC. So with that, I will open the public hearing with this. So I will now open the public hearing on the application submitted by Bird Harvest for a new hotel and restaurant liquor license. And they are located at 73 Samuel Wade Road. And they have requested to, in addition to being able to serve wine and beer and wine originated mock cocktails, they would like to also have a liquor license for hard liquor. And this is the license they will need to get that. The purpose of the hearing is to provide a public forum for all interested parties who wish to comment on these applications before the board. The procedure for the public hearing will be as follows. First, we will have a presentation by town staff. Next, there will be a 5-minute presentation by the applicant. After these 2 presentations, we will allow members of the public to speak for up to 5 minutes. All testimony must be presented at the lectern after you give your full name and address, and I swear you in. Please do not repeat points made by others, but it is fine to say that you agree or disagree with a comment previously made. Please direct all of your comments to the board and not to the town staff or the applicant. After receiving public comments, we will allow the applicant and town staff an opportunity to respond and answer any questions raised by the public comments. I will then turn the matter over to the board, and the trustees may ask questions of anyone who testified. We generally will not ask questions during the presentations. Finally, I will close the public hearing and the board will discuss the matter and may take some kind of action. Once the public hearing has closed, no further comment from the applicant or public will be taken. However, the board may ask for advice from the town attorney. Public hearings are recorded for the public record. So first, do we have proper notification?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. Do any trustees have any disclosures, any conflict of interest? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Thank you. So would the town administrator please present the staff presentation? Actually, so will the town clerk please present the staff presentation?
Yes, thank you. Bird Harvest LLC, doing business as Bird Harvest Mercantile, are changing their liquor license. So in order to do that, you have to get rid of the other one and do a completely new one to make the kind of change that if they're going for here. So the location is the same, it's 73 Samuel Mead Road here in Peonia. And we actually started this process on January 31st. So Lauren and I have been working together a lot to get this one through. The only other significant change that will be is they're including a bigger space in their serving area. So that will include their outside pavilion. It'll be fenced, they'll have signage, the whole 9 yards, but so they can help provide more of that outside dining and experience that everybody seems to go there for. There hadn't been any denials of liquor license applications at this. As a matter of fact, there's a liquor license there still in good standing. So there's no reason for it to be denied on those facts. They own the property. Like I said, it's been an existing one there. So there's no issues there. We did background investigation, there's also the CBI and the FBI, and there was no cause for concern on any of those. We actually noticed this public hearing twice because we had to postpone the first one, so we did go through the notification process again, even though we still used a lot of the same paperwork. We did make sure that there was a second notification went through. And then the thing that held them up the last time, which was the underage serve violation, has been cleared. The state's happy with that, and they're complete. They're okay with them moving on and transferring the license now. So,
Okay, thank you. Are there any other staff comments from any of the staff that's here? Chief Lamminger, any comments?
No, everything looked to be in order. We've had no issues out there.
Great, thank you. So we'll move on to the applicant presentation portion of the hearing. Will the applicant please come up to the podium, or the representative, I'm assuming you're okay. And please come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record and take the oath.
Lauren Poliveris, I live on 14618 Peony Lane in Peonia.
Do you swear to tell the truth on this matter?
Absolutely.
Please make your presentation.
Well, thank you for your time and considering this application. We have had our beer and wine license for several years. And really the reason that we are pursuing a full liquor license is we right now certainly don't have the space for the facility to have a bar, a sit-down bar, but we wanted to expand our offerings to pre-mixed cocktail type drinks. So like a canned Jack and Coke or something like that, to just try and expand our offerings to ideally increase our evening business is really the impetus for the whole thing. Is our sales are good during lunch, but a lot of people don't drink during lunch. So what we'd like to do is just try and increase our revenue and sales, especially during the tourist season, cherry days, harvest festivals, things like that, and increase our business by expanding into pre-made cocktails. So that's really the reason that we've made the application.
Okay, thank you. So I'll now open the public comment portion of the public hearing. And I will ask each speaker to clearly state their full name and address for the record, and then I will ask you to swear that you will tell the truth on this matter. Is there anyone in the room who would like to make a comment? Seeing none, anyone on Zoom who would like to make a comment? None? Okay. That closes the public comment portion, but not the hearing. So does the applicant wish to offer any further comment? Okay. Anything further from town staff?
unless you have any questions.
Okay. I will now close the public comment portion of the public hearing, but I'm not closing the public hearing at this time. Before we turn to trustee questions and deliberation, I want to state that the documents included as part of the record for this public hearing include all application materials submitted by the applicant, all materials included in the packets, all written referral and public comments received regarding the application, the notice of hearings, and the town's ordinances. Does anyone have any objection to the inclusion of these items in the record? Hearing none. So, questions from trustees? No questions? Trustee Stelter, any questions?
No, ma'am.
And all my questions were answered by your presentation. If there are no questions or comments, I will now close the public hearing and turn the matter over to the board for consideration of the resolution listed on the agenda. So I'm now closing the public hearing. So trustee deliberation? Okay. If there is no further discussion by the Board of Trustees, I will entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the liquor license change.
Okay, and
Can we,
Clerk Vetter, yes.
can we alter that to approve the granting of a new hotel and restaurant liquor license for Bird Harvest LLC? Please.
I would like to make a motion to approve the new liquor, hotel and restaurant liquor license for Berg Harvest LLC.
Good. Second. Okay, trustee Heck has seconded, and we have to have a roll call vote, if you would, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Schwartz,
Aye.
trustee Check,
Aye.
trustee Heck,
Aye.
trustee Hunter, aye, trustee Stelter,
Aye.
the motion carries.
Motion carries. Congratulations. Thank you. So we'll move on to actions and presentations. And the first item is item number 1, which is a discussion on creating a classification for block parties. And this is Barbara Heck and Randy Derryberry are the citizens requesting this discussion. So I'm turning to Clerk Vetter just so we would ask them to come up to the podium and make a presentation on this for 3 minutes. Is that
It's generally, they generally have 5 minutes.
okay? So they each, can they come up together? Or would you like to do,
Sure. It's all good.
Would you-
Let's not actually.
wait a minute, yeah. Hang on,
Miss Heck and are you Derryberry? Okay, so they would start,
There will be a chance for public comment. You guys
Oh,
will have a chance
right,
to come up.
so if you both want to come to the podium at the same time, or do you, and make your presentation together, or do you each want 5 minutes?
We'll take 5 minutes.
Together or separately?
Separately.
Okay, and so you'll state your name and address. Okay,
I live in town. We've had 5 block parties where we have to sit in the sun. We used to be able to close the street off. That was dropped when things changed. So what we're asking is the town to put in a special regulation or something that allows us to have a 4-hour block party during daylight hours. We have from First Street to Fourth come and we get 40 to 45 people. And it would be a lot easier sitting in the street than on a narrow kill strip lawn. And doing some research, we realized that most cities, most towns, most suburbs have an allocation for block parties, and we'd like Paonia to consider it.
thank you.
All right.
Okay.
My name is Randy Derryberry. I live at 319 Poplar. As Barb said, we've had 5 block parties over the last few years. Only one time did we actually close off the street. Back at the time, it cost us $35 to do that. Most of the time, we do not even get into the street. We on the strip between the sidewalk and the strip and the street. But we have a lot of people there. We don't ever had not have any problems. We have a lot of kids that come. That's one reason that we talked about closing the street, because we have a lot of kids that come from between from First Street clear down to Fourth Street. We go out and we put out pamphlets for everybody to bring stuff. It's a potluck type thing. Mike does our best cooking there. He does all the hamburgers for us. And so we've never had any problems. We do a very thorough job of cleaning up afterwards. We've had people from other streets come by and join us. So we have no problem with other people coming and enjoying this. We have never had any expense to the city for doing any of this cleanup for the block party, because we do that all ourselves. We've never went past 3 hours at the most and that. So what we'd like, instead of calling this a special event as it's in your bylaws now, we'd like to have a portion just to have block parties. The $500 upfront fee is quite a bit for a block party. I realize that you get it back if there's no expense, but could that be waived, or could there be just a smaller fee for the application or something like that? That's the reason we'd like to have a special reservation or special part for
Okay.
it. Okay?
Anything else from either of you?
Nope.
Okay, and I just
We
want.
have a lot of kids, and that's why it would be really great to be able to shut the street down. Because they ride their bikes home to use the bathroom, and that, I just think it's really important that the town adds this to their regulations. We've had people from other blocks come over and ask us about it, wanting to do the same thing. And insurance requirements, no one's gonna put the money up for insurance. It's a simple block party with just neighbors.
The one time we closed the street, we closed between 3rd and 4th, that's all we closed. And then we actually put our own signs out, and then the city come and put some barriers out there for us. So it was a very easy thing to do. After 3 hours, we took them back down and then the street was back open, so hopefully you can think about that.
Okay.
Okay?
Thanks.
And this part of the agenda really is for discussion purposes, just to ask questions of staff and take public comment on it. We, I suppose we could direct staff to go further, which would be a motion. But there's no specific decision to be made tonight because of all the details needed to just determine that. So I just want to make that clear. It's more of a discussion. And Trustee Hunter?
I just had a quick comment that the Special Events Ad Hoc Committee did receive an email from Ms. Hug a couple months ago. This was probably in January or February. We did discuss it very briefly at one of our meetings about special events, and basically just noted that this is something we need to address and come back to. So that will likely be, or that's kind of the direction I'm thinking, is requesting the ad hoc committee to address that as well.
Okay. Is that good? Okay.
Thank you.
So I guess at this point, I can tell there's a lot of people in the audience interested in this. So why don't I open up now for public comment? You have to give us your name and if you live in town or out of town, and have 3 minutes. And then, I would kind of then allow the trustees to talk amongst ourselves and ask questions of the staff as part of this. So I'll open it up to public comment for those in the room that wanted to speak on this topic. Anyone who wanted to have further input? No? Okay. Oh, okay, and I'll ask you to withhold your conversation, please. And please come up if you do want to speak. This is your opportunity. Okay? I see none. Anybody online from the public who would like to speak? No. Okay. Well, yes. Yes, you can.
Okay. Sharon Damons. I didn't know what a block party was, but I think it sounds wonderful in that it allows you to learn about your neighbors. That's all I have to say. Sounds like a wonderful family thing too, so.
Thank you. Anyone else on second thought? Okay.
I'm Carrie Soto, I live at 314 Poplar. And I have a couple of those children that were mentioned who like to ride their bikes and run across the street randomly. So it would be nice if during the block party, we could get the street blocked up and be allowed to have it. So
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so with that, I'll open it up to trustees for discussion, questions with yourself, staff. Mayor Pro Tem Schwartz?
Yeah, I have a question for trustee Stelter. Just, given your experience on the North Fork EMS, not speaking as you as a trustee, but as an EMS person, any issues that you see for public safety?
I really don't see anything, especially with a limited road closure. The only thing is notification so that we know that that street is going to be closed ahead of time. That's the only thing that I think would change EMS at all. I don't see any problems.
So I appreciate that. Thank you.
It seems to me from first to fourth is more than a block. So I can understand if it is really a block party or if it is just neighbors, they could go to the park without a special permit to have a potluck or whatever, smaller group of neighbors. I just think closing the street for 3 blocks is too much.
And I don't know if you meant it was closed for 3 blocks, but the people went from 3 blocks, came to your 1 block.
Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
Okay,
We just closed third and fourth.
right. And I think it's just you invited everybody on either end. Yeah. I can give people my experience when I lived in Cheyenne, we had block parties for probably 15 years. We got the requisite permit. We moved all the cars. We got the street blocked off. The city brought us the barricades. We drank in the street. We ate in the street. And then one year we went to get our permit and we were told that we could not have our block party in the public street or public right of way without insurance because of the risk to the town should something happen on that public right of way. So needless to say, we did not get the insurance, but we just met in someone's front lawn because we shouldn't have been drinking in the street, honestly. And so we could drink alcohol and in the front lawn, but we did not shut the street down. So I'm only bringing this up because I don't know what Chief Laminger, if he did some research on what we have to do to prevent risk to the town of Paonia should a car hit some child on that street. What risk does the town of Paonia carry with that? And Chief Laminger, I didn't know if you had a chance to hear how any other town, how they did their risk assessment.
Yeah, so, and I think the administrator has done some work on this as well. Traditionally, it goes 1 of 2 ways for most block parties now, where you're either gonna have single day event insurance, which is available now since it's becoming more common, or the town through the application process, which has been discussed already, would have an indemnification clause. That's in most of the applications in Colorado, that clause is in there. They also have requirements like a lot of other events for emergency personnel, where they park, where they stage, things like that. Obviously, the block party, it fits really, really well with our idea of community policing. It's a great event for us to get out, meet the people as well. So certainly from a public safety standpoint, we're not at all opposed. But I will point out, in looking at the other municipalities who are doing it, they do have something in place for that reason, which may explain why Cheyenne did it for so long. It was no more. I think this has probably increased a little bit, at least from what I'm gathering. certainly since January 1st with New Orleans, what happened down there. Even though it was a truck attack and then our Christmas attack in 2021. Events like that tend to change these a little bit, but from what I'm gathering, particularly after the Christmas attack and now, since the first of the year, it's not, there's more hoops, but there are more requirements, certainly.
Administrator Wynn, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, the chief touched on it pretty well. It was the New Year's Day attack this year, so 2025, where a truck went down Bourbon Street and, hit a bunch of people. That would be my concern is where do we do how do we cover that liability? And we really need to invest in some barricades. I've talked with Nikki already about purchasing some, and I'm talking some that are even water filled. So you fill them with water. That way, if a car does hit them, it doesn't go very far.
Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry.
Trustee Stelter has his hand up.
Oh, Trustee Stelter, please go ahead.
Yeah, I see this as kind of over regulating. Calling this a special event is kind of stretching it a little bit. It's for an afternoon, it's a block party. I also think that there is a very good possibility that we could use the indemnification clause for the town. It's very unlikely that we're going to have any accidents that are going to be more than a normal accident for one of these things. And it's a very short period of time. In my opinion, we ought to have a special event for this, to get rid of the large charge for trash, etc. I do think that there needs to be a bond to make sure that everything's cleaned up and nothing's left, but it doesn't need to be $500. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. One of the other things I wanted to add is I noticed on Grand Junctions, Chief Lamenter shared Grand Junctions application with me just to take a look. And the one thing they do say is you cannot drink alcohol on the public property. So like I said, we violated that many years because that wasn't anything they did in Cheyenne. The risk assessment person probably went, what are you doing? So and I loved, our block parties were great. The kids loved it. Everybody sat in the street and the kids rode up and down the street. It was wonderful. So I'm a big block party enthusiast. I just want to make sure we do it in a way that protects the town of Paonia and the people having the block party. So, yes.
Just tossing this out here as you guys are discussing it, but actually we do have an on-premises permit, which allows drinking, not selling, but drinking on public property. So that might be something that if you choose to go forward with this, take into consideration on whether or not streets for block parties would be a part of that. The MW Rally uses it every year since they camp in the town park. So there is that option there, whether you guys want that to happen or not.
Can I just ask, does that have to be associated with a nonprofit? Is it not restricted?
No,
Okay.
it's a $150 fee, and the police are actually the ones who end up authorizing it, asking the questions, making sure it's safe, and doing all that before they sign off on it.
Good, that's good to know. I'm sorry, who does it? Oh, I'm sorry, I can't see his hand against the background. Administrator Wynn, go ahead.
Yeah, so we kind of already have the framework. You already heard from the clerk that we have something for liquor licensing. We already have a section of our code for street closures, and the ordinance on the agenda in a little bit is talking about special events, which sets the framework for block parties. And the definition of special event, it includes block parties. What we don't have is a change to our fees. And if this ordinance were to pass today or tonight, I would think that the next thing to do would be to address our fees through the ad hoc committee for all special events, including this block party situation, and then street closures and renting of things like cones and barricades. I think that would be our next step if the ordinance were to pass this evening.
Okay, except that for a special event is 100 people or more, based on the definition. Are you suggesting that that be modified, since most block parties don't have 100 people? In my experience.
Yeah, we can modify that, but in reality, we've got an entire section on street closures with a permit that doesn't talk about the amount of people, and it's renting of a public space. That's section 11-180 of our code. So that is already existing, and we can modify a definition to be anybody less than 100 as well.
Thank you. Okay, how would the trustees like to proceed? You had mentioned the ad hoc committee, trustee Hunter.
I'm happy to make a motion to that effect to see if it sticks.
Sure.
I move to have the special events ad hoc committee meet and report back to the Board of Trustees with recommendations for policy, fees, and insurance requirements for small block parties.
Oh, wait a minute, Clerk Benner.
Sorry, I changed my name. I'm in trustee Hyannis or something. Can we change the wording of the motion to refer it to the ad hoc special events committee, please?
Sure. Thank you. Do I need to restate it or please? So I'd like to move to refer this to the special events ad hoc committee, to have them report back to the Board of Trustees with recommendations on policy, fees, and insurance requirements for small block parties.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you. And our next item number 2, discussion about bicycle regulations and unleashed unlicensed dogs. Trustee Stelter, if you would like to open this up.
Sure. The bicycle regulations, I've been sitting on my porch a lot this spring and early summer. And right at dusk and after dark, there are many bicycles that are running without headlights nor taillights and no reflectors. And I personally have almost hit 2 bicyclists after dark in this town. Coincidentally, it was on 3rd and Grand. That seems to be a real problematic intersection for bicycle car interaction. The one, had I not looked a second time to the west, I would have nailed him. He was wearing all black clothes and I didn't even see him until he literally got into my headlights. So this is something that's going to become more and more of an issue now that we have the Jumbo Mountain trails open, and people coming down from Jumbo Mountain or staying in town and riding their bikes to restaurants, etc., and after dark returning. So I think that we need some kind of a regulation that you have some sort of lighting and or reflective clothing and reflectors on the bicycle. And that's it for the bicycle. Do you want to discuss these separately, or do you want to go on with the unleashed dog subject?
I think it might be easier to do it separately, just to keep
Let's
the
do
discussion
that.
on topic. Thanks.
That's all I had to say.
So from your perspective, you'd like bicyclists to have something, lights, reflectors, and say the third thing? It was headlight?
High visibility clothing or reflective clothing.
Okay. Any comments from trustees? Yeah, trustee Hunter.
Question for Chief Laminger. Does the Colorado Uniform Vehicle Code cover that?
Yeah, so 42 code, 42.4.221 has requirements in place currently. Those requirements are every bicycle, electrical assisted bicycle, electric scooter, or EPA, which is electric personal assisted mobility device, or like a handicap scooter or something like that, shall be equipped with a lamp on the front, emitting a white light visible from a distance of at least 500 feet to the front. Every bicycle, same equipment. Shall be equipped with a red reflector of type approved by the department, shall be visible 600 feet to the rear. And they have to be equipped with reflective material sufficient size and reflectivity to be visible from both sides of the bicycle for 600 feet. So the equipment is in place. This is a Class B traffic infraction. Class B traffic infraction of this nature would be a $15 fine, no points assessed, plus a $6 court surcharge. We have not been writing that ticket. We have been educating, explaining the requirements. It kind of goes, from what we're observing, it goes a little bit kind of in waves, particularly in the summer. We do, like Trustee Seltzer said, we do see a lot more people riding their bicycles. Right after sunset, and the other stipulation, this refers back to 42.4.1412, is going to be 42.4.204, between sunset and sunrise. That's when that equipment is required. What we're seeing, particularly around our parks, and a little bit more in that 300 block in Grand, is right after sunset with the kids. A lot of the kids and bicycles simply don't have that equipment, or it's broke. Letting them know is one thing. We don't go to the lanes of, let's go talk to your parents, let's go that route. We haven't been doing that. We have spoken with them through our school resource officer up at the school. As you guys may be aware, they have a bicycle program up there. They're all aware, so they're trying to educate the kids as well on helmets, reflectors, clothing, things like that. The one caveat that we're getting a lot is, well, I have a headlamp on. Headlamp does not qualify. You still have to have that equipment on your bicycle. But now the summer's ticked up a little bit. We're not just getting the kids, we are getting a lot more adults. We've kind of taken the path of education versus enforcement, because it is a $15 fine and $6 surcharge. But we can certainly make that a priority. We're not seeing a lot of that in the mornings, but we definitely are seeing it in the evenings. The police department would be happy to prioritize that. See if we can change the behavior on that.
Yeah, does this also stretch to pedestrian walking streets? How's that different?
Different.
Okay, I'll
Different
say
section.
that.
Yeah, 42 code is going to be a model traffic code, but it doesn't address bicycle scooters.
Yes.
I'm not interested in the police doing anything other than what they're doing now. I think the route you're taking with education is appropriate. I don't think we need to micromanage down to that level. So I think just keep doing what you're doing, and I don't personally have an issue with it, with what's happened. Or feel like it needs board intervention.
Trustee Hunter?
I'd be in agreement with that. I mean, I'd say maybe encourage more contacts, more encouragement, but I don't see any need to really hammer down on assessing fines.
Yeah, I think the trustee Stelter's point, perhaps what we could do is maybe a little more focused education, particularly around our parks at nights. We've been doing more speed and DUI enforcement, but especially during the week, if you're looking at the water, our DUI enforcement is working because we're not getting as many of those. Our speed is also decreased, so that has worked. It may be something we could look at, maybe more just targeted education, particularly on that 3rd Street around our parks.
I think that'd be great. Before we move on to any more, I wanted to open it up to the public, anyone who would like to comment on this particular piece about bicycle safety. Yes, come on up.
Just that I walk my dog in the night and there's children running around with bicycles that are totally dark, and it's just really scary to me. I think we should do something, education, maybe even some kind of little fair thing where they can buy headlights or something. And get the parents involved.
Hey, could you sign into the sheet there? Thank you.
Mr. Stelter has the same.
Okay, hang on. Trustee Stelter, I'm gonna take another public comment. And then I'll turn it back to you. Hi, thank you.
My name is Randy Garyberry. One of the problems I see is I do a hike up the jumbo trails of that. Since you guys have restricted the parking up at the top of that street in the entrance to jumbo trails, there's a lot less people drive up there and park. I think you have a sign that says they can park down at the Apple Valley Park, but I don't see a lot of that. I see a lot of the people coming off there riding their bike down. So I just wanted to make that a point. There's a lot of those guys are late up there driving, and they ride all the way from wherever they live in town. So that's a really good place that you want to check out, because they fly off that hill too. Yes.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience? And nobody online other than trustee Stelter, correct?
He lowered his hand.
Oh, maybe because I said he had to wait. Trustee Stelter, would you like to have your opportunity? Go ahead.
Yes, I think some signage is definitely in order, that we have signs either on the entrances to town at least, that lights, headlights and taillights on bicycles and reflectors are required by the highway code. And I think that having signs up at Jumbo and in Apple Valley Park would be another good idea. I'm not for, arresting people or giving heavy fines or making them go to court. We just got to make it a lot safer. And I'm telling you that there's a lot of kids, usually a dozen or more after dark, going down 3rd Street. And it's pretty much the same kids, but I have no way to, what am I going to do? Stop them and tell them they got to get some lights? They're just going to laugh. So it's a concern for me, especially with EMS. Thank you. That's it.
Nikki?
And not to disagree with trustee Stelter, but we definitely can run into sign overload. And especially up where you suggested to at the Jumbo Trail, there are so many signs already. I don't want to get into that as well. The 1 year I have been here, we have put up more signs than I could ever count. So I don't want to get into that either. So that's just kind of a good little balance there. I don't know what else to do, but signs don't overly do it.
And Clerk Fetter had her hand. Oh, okay, yeah. Administrator Wynn?
Yeah, so I think that this is an excellent opportunity for education. So it's not just, it doesn't have to be signs, it doesn't have to be ticketing people, but I think it's an opportunity for education that we can use our school resource officer in schools to help inform that if you're going to have a bike at night, you should have some lighting and some reflectors. I think that's maybe the approach we ought to take as the town, is more education. It's kind of like what you do for fire prevention, right? The biggest thing for fire prevention is educating. I think the same thing kind of applies in this situation.
Trustee Hunter?
I'd absolutely agree with all that. So what do we as a board need to do to make this a priority for staff? Would you like to hear a motion to that effect?
And trustee Stelter has his hand up too. Let me give trustee Stelter another opportunity before your potential motion. Trustee Stelter? Uh-oh.
This education's great for the kids, but what I'm seeing now is more and more adults, and they're generally coming down, going west on 3rd at about 7:30 or 8 o'clock. And then I also see them going east on 3rd at 9, 10, and 11 o'clock with no lights. And I'm assuming that those are people that do not live here. These are people that are staying here and came for tourism. And we can educate the kids all we want, but we're not educating the tourists. So my suggestion is, at a minimum, that we have signs on the 2 bridges that you have to have lights and reflectors on bicycles. And that's it. Thank you.
Trustee Hunter, any more discussion?
I'm not ready for a motion just yet, but, yeah, I mean, I'm a biker, I bike here, like, I'm an adult. I know I gotta have a light on my bike, and sometimes it's not charged, like, you can put signs up all you want, but in my mind, it's the kids that, okay, we're concerned about the kids. Like, I know in the past, our police department has given out bicycle helmets. Lights are cheap, like, if there's something that we could do to give out some lights in the schools for kids who ride their bikes, like, I'll even throw $100 towards that. Like, adults, like, whatever, like, you're an adult, like, you should just know to put a light on your bike. But kids, like, let's give them, that to me feels like that could be something that as part of our community policing to help with that and to keep our kids safer. The tourists, I don't need to tell them they have to put a light on their bike.
Nikki, you had your hand up?
I guess maybe to address some of the adult bike riders, if they're not from here, I don't know if we could partner with Ross Hotel, Rocky Mountain Inn, and just put up some kind of educational flyer there where people stay. I don't know if that's an option or something for people. Because they usually have the pamphlet board and things of that sort. But I get his point, because I also run into frustrations with adults and bikes and pedestrians and all of that kind of stuff. So I don't, yeah, we want to keep kids safe, but we still don't want the adults as well. I don't know, it's not cute.
So my only, before I make a motion, I'd like to offer that to trustee Stelter, since this is his agenda item. If he wants to take a stab at it first, I'll gladly take a step back, because my motion will not include signs.
Okay, and I'd like to just make a comment that I think, I personally think the adults are the problem because they're the ones out late. And I think we do a combination of education, maybe not a public notice, what am I looking for? When you send everything out to the media that we're going to be enforcing this code. A public press release, thank you. I think that's important, and I would suggest that the officers do stop adults that are riding without lights, because they're the ones that are gonna be out late enough that somebody's gonna get hurt. I don't know the kids, and then do the kids as well, but I think adults are a big part of the problem. And there needs to be a semblance of education for the kids, and I think if a few officers stopped a bicyclist occasionally, the word would spread. Anyway, those are my 2 cents.
So if I may, kind of what I'm pulling, I think we'll have to start with trustee Stelter bringing this, we're obviously talking about it. So what I'm pulling from this are possible community program for procurement, disbursement of equipment, particularly given that we have our Nicholas and Arcade schools we can utilize. Increased enforcement, Jim Mountain Trailhead, 3rd and Grand, especially that 7:30 to 11 o'clock window, and sounds like possibly later with the kids. Signage is on the table. The other thing we can do is, and we've utilized this with other retailers for other issues. This kind of came out of our discussion, got started last summer, but we built this relationship with our local retailers. So perhaps one of our local bicycle retailers can let them know. Anytime somebody brings a bike to you for repair, if it doesn't seem like it has required, maybe mention it to them, that would be extremely helpful to us. I'm constantly taking my kids' bikes for flat tires, so they're seeing a lot of bikes come through their doors. We can utilize them as a partner in the community. The other thing we can do is our school resource officer has now moved to evenings for the summer, so he has a really good relationship with students. He knows them. They're glad we stop and talk to him in his patrol car, so we can start utilizing him, especially given those windows of time where we typically don't have our school resource officer on. And the last thing I have is perhaps we can utilize our social media a little bit as well. So it seems to be extremely effective. We use it with dog registrations and some other things. So that's another tool we can use.
Thank you for the summary. Trustee Stelter, did you want to make a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we use a combination of enforcement, informational stops, signage, and giving the kids equipment if they can get it, if we can do it that way. And that we contact the Airbnbs and the hotels in town and inform them. I'd also like to ask that we get on the community board for KVNF as a recurring thing. That lights and taillights and headlights are required, and reflectors are required on your bicycles. That's it.
Before, I'm going to ask Administrator Wynn has put his hand up before. Can I wait to, that was a really long motion. And I don't know if that was captured. Okay, so Ruben has it. So let me ask for a second. Okay, hearing none, that motion fails. So let me ask Administrator Wynn, he has his hand up, and what your thoughts are.
If, let me lower my hand. If you were to make a motion, because it seemed to be really sticky, if you directed staff to come up with a program on education and enforcement, that's something I can take back to a department head meeting and present back to the board for your consideration, you know, in collaboration with our police chief and our public works director.
So could you repeat the very beginning of that, your comment?
If you direct us as staff to come up with a program for this bicycle thing.
Okay, thank you. Yes, trustee.
Have an emotion if
Well,
you'd like
let me
to.
just see if trustee Stelter would like to make a second motion based on
We'll
Administrator.
give it a
Wynn.
shot. I'd like to direct staff to come up with some sort of action that we can take, combining education and public notice of what the regulations are, and that we are intending to make things better.
Do we have a second for that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? And were you able to get that motion? Okay. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, I guess all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, that motion
I'm a
passed.
nay, just.
Oh, sorry, and nay. Okay, and one nay, but the motion passes. So now the second half of this agenda topic was the unlicensed dogs. So trustee Stelter, if you'd like to describe your concerns there.
Yes, I've been down to the river park recently, and every time I've gone, there's been multiple unleashed dogs in that area. And twice I've seen dogs fighting because there's leashed dogs and unleashed dogs. Also on 3rd Street, it is very common to see dogs unleashed going down the street with their owner. My suggestion is that they be educated by being stopped and making sure that those dogs are licensed. Since we have 47 licensed dogs in this town, of which 2 of those licenses I bought because my dog lost his first one. And we probably have more than 47 dogs per block in this town. This is one of the biggest things is that in order to be licensed, they need to have a rabies shot. Or a rabies certificate that they've had a shot. That's one of the biggest things I've seen in town. People don't have their dogs vaccinated, and that's extremely dangerous with the wild animals. I had 2 raccoons in my backyard last week. I've had a skunk in my backyard, and every day, just about, if you go down the alleys early in the morning, you will find various animals in the alleys loose, and rabies is endemic in Colorado. So that's one of the things that we really need to do. And I suggest that we possibly have staff look into enforcement by stopping people with unleashed dogs to start at that point. And if they are not licensed, make sure that they are licensed. I don't think court is the big thing, but education is. Most people don't think they have to, and they don't because it's not enforced. Thank you.
Thanks. Other comments from trustees? And I'd ask Chief Laminger to comment. I know that the officers have been stopping people with unleashed dogs. Is that still happening?
So, to be clear, officers are not stopping people with unleashed dogs. We may be contacting people if we have a complaint or we're in a general public area to stop them. We're not stopping every person we see who doesn't have a dog on us, which is that animal may be a service animal. Service animals are not necessarily required to be on a leash, and we're not allowed to inquire as to why they need that service in them. But we have, kind of similar, we have tried to utilize, education and contact in our community policing model. That's part of the reason our registrations are taken up. These are the requirements out on all dogs that will be on a leash unless they're service animal. It's my understanding your dog's not registered. If it has rabies vaccination, please go down and get it registered. If it doesn't, please get rabies vaccination. Then go down and get it registered. That's part of it is the other part of this would be the dogs who are not within our, but it doesn't sound like that's what we're discussing right now, right? Yeah, it's a similar discussion. It continues to be a problem. Seems to be worse in the winter when not everybody can get out to PO and for service with their dogs. You see a pretty big increase in the dogs part. Yeah, it's been sort of an education, but again, we can increase our enforcement and education on that front as well.
Nikki?
And Public Works just spent significant amount of time putting up signs already. Dogs must be on leash and to pick up after them as well. So they're posted at every park. It's on brand. We've spent significant amount of time to do all of, open spaces up at the trailheads, things of that sort. There's also dog food stations everywhere that we keep stocked as well. So I mean, we're putting a solid effort forward into trying to get this issue resolved.
Okay, I'm gonna open it up to public comment and then trustees can weigh in some more. Anybody in the room who would like to speak for up to 3 minutes on this topic? Seeing none, is there anyone? There's nobody on Zoom either. Okay, all right, thanks. So now comments from trustees, discussion? Questions for Chief Lamager? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Schwartz.
Yeah, like I want, I think our police department are doing an awesome job of cracking down on DUIs and speeding. Those to me are the big issues. Like, I think the route that Public Works and our police department are taking of just education, I love it. That's awesome. To go any more than that, like if there's a problem, like, I mean, I don't want us to be preemptively stopping people, et cetera. We got bigger things to deal with. And yeah, that's my two cents. And I really appreciate your all's effort that the public education you are doing. And the signs in the park are awesome.
Other trustees? I just want to bring up what happened, I believe it was probably this time last year. One of my neighbors, there was an unleashed dog and her dog was on a leash and the unleashed dog was coming after her and her dog. She ended up in a house of someone she didn't even know. She knocked on the door and she came to talk about it. She was really concerned that these unleashed dogs have threatened her and her dog. So again, there are people really concerned about they have their dog on a leash and then this other dog isn't. So I do know at that time, Chief Lamager, you know, your officers were going to be aware of dogs off leash.
Yeah, so as an instance like that, it's like some other code enforcement, obviously, call us. We've got spoke about that before. Call the 911 dispatch line, or if it is an emergency, by all means, call 911, and they'll get us dispatched out. Kind of touching on that topic, it brings up where we would, if we don't have an owner with the dog, that's kind of been our hurdle. It's something we've been working on for 3 years now. We've made some progress on it, but we're still working on it. But yeah, in that situation, obviously, if we have aggressive dogs, if you have a dog that continues to escape its owner's property and come onto yours, please call us, look them up and speak with them. And we are not heavily, but we do write the occasional animal large ticket, but it's not something like very heavy handed, but we can certainly do more enforcement on that.
Trustee Stelter?
Yeah, I appreciate all the education and the signage that we've had, but the fact remains that we have very low compliance with licensing and leashes, both. And I think that a little enforcement would go a long way. Thank you.
Thanks. Anything else? Sure.
Yes, I think Trustee Schwartz might feel differently if she had ever been charged by the dog or bitten by the dog. So there are those dogs in town that are aggressive, that do charge me and other dogs. I think the leash law needs to.
Needs to be enforced.
Yes.
Any other comments? Any? Based on the, yeah, trustee
I
Hunter.
mean, honestly, I'm kind of, personally, I'm torn on this one. I definitely agree with everything Mayor Pro Tem Swartz was saying, but I also, it's a huge pet peeve of mine when I'm not walking my dogs on leash at the river park and somebody has their dog unleashed and they say, without fail, don't worry, they're friendly. It's like, well, one of my dogs is not. And that's why she's leashed. And if your dog comes up trying to be friendly, like I see both sides and I'm torn on this one.
If I may add, I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but to be clear, the river park is not ours. So we have no enforcement at the river park, particularly down on the river dogs on the leash down there. We certainly do in town limits. But yeah, as far as the river park goes.
Yes.
I just want to, I'm a board member of Western Slope Conservation Center, and they do everything possible. They leave leashes out, the signage, like. I mean, yeah, it does. It's, I mean, I don't know what else to do at that point. You want to keep it accessible for people, like you want to have a river park. Do we shut down, do we say no dogs, and then who enforces it? Like, you just do what you can. Yeah, I don't know how else to say that.
And if I might ask Chief Lamager, and I'm sure there's times if you have stopped somebody and they don't live here, so they're not gonna go get a license, you know?
Yeah, so, again, this tends to increase more in the summer, particularly around our events and festivals, in the context of who doesn't live here. Animal on a leash still applies. That's the education part of that. You need to obtain a leash or return to where you're staying and get a leash. Again, we tend to not cite those individuals unless we see them multiple times and they've been warned. The officers are pretty good about, if they issue a verbal warning, they'll come back and cut a report on it. Outline the dog. We also have body cam, they'll link to it. So if we are getting the same complaint about the same dog, the same person, that's what we would write that citation, but yeah, I don't want to say that all the dogs off leash go on the people don't live here. That's certainly not the case, but there are some.
So it sounds like a combination of education that maybe the town could, as in the same vein as the bicycle safety is, again, note that dogs should be on leashes when they're in corporate limits of Paonia, and get your dog's license. Could also be press release, public outreach, et cetera.
Certainly, we can tackle on some increased enforcement by that as well.
Trustee Stelter, do you feel like you would like to have a motion to direct staff on this as well? Or could you hear Chief Lamager?
I heard everything. I think what was said is food for thought, and I think that staff doesn't need any further direction.
So you don't propose a motion?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Anyone else propose a motion? Okay.
Before we leave the topic, I just have a quick question for Chief Lamager. Ever since Doc Vincent retired, like, have we figured out anything to do with dogs at large?
So that's what we've been working on. We were making some headway. Town Administrator Nguyen has been working with me on this as well. Speaking with City of Delta, that progress is kind of slowed, but it certainly is something we're still working on. They have, Wishers has some kennels down there. It's my understanding those belong to the City of Delta, so we're trying to work with them to coordinate so we could possibly pay for the use of one of those kennels on a monthly basis, and then we would have somewhere to take dogs, especially if they're not registered. If we contact the dog who's friendly but not registered, we'll push something out on our social media page. That's our only recourse right now.
Thanks for the info. Okay, well, I guess we'll leave it at Chief Lamager had some suggestions that he'll follow through with. Okay, and leave it at that. Thank you. So item number 3, consideration of approval of ordinance 25-03, special events. Administrator Wynn.
Okay, so this is the culmination of the special event ad hoc committee. We met a few times and discussed a framework to create this ordinance. Earlier this afternoon, I sent you questions and answers that I'll also go through, but I do want to draw attention to one thing. Can you go to the ordinance definition for special event, please? Keep going, it's on the next page. It's under definitions, if you keep going. Keep going to special event. Okay, if you scroll back up to First Amendment special event, so there's a couple of different types of special events. And I do want to tell you that the power of the semicolon is really helpful when I'm trying to understand the definition for special event or event. But a First Amendment special event is one that is a protected gathering, a First Amendment right. And that is not something that is considered a special event unless, there's going to be over 100 people. And then we're going to ask just for a simple security deposit in case something were to be damaged. If you go down to special event, I do want to talk about how the current definition of block party or special events covers block parties. So if you look throughout the definition, there are semicolons, and those semicolons are different clauses within this definition. And if you go down to any event, so this is close to the end, any event that requires the temporary closure of a public street, alley, or right-of-way, or the direct erection of barricades, examples of special events include, but are not limited to, that covers what we were talking about with the first agenda item, a block party. So it's requiring that street closure, even if it's temporary, it still falls under a special event. So we do, like I said earlier, we do have this framework. If you continue to go through this document, anything that is capitalized that you might think, hey, this was strange that it's capitalized, it has a special meaning in this legal document. It means that it has been defined. So if you see, like I capitalized town all throughout this document, it's because we've defined town. If you see sponsorship in lieu of fees capitalized, it's because it's been defined. So that's something that, as you see ordinances come from me, I've done this a few times with definitions. You'll see that those capital words are also defined. If you could go to section 6540, permit required. It's on the next page. Okay, so what we talked about were a framework for what these special events, how do we build an application or make our application better? How do we fix our fees that are kind of a convoluted mess? And it's really to produce this legal framework that the special event ordinance is for. We didn't, or intends to do, we didn't have a special event anywhere within our Paonia Municipal Code. Nothing aside from liquor licensing defined as a special event. And that's what this code it aims to do. Creates an entirely new article within our code. I do want to draw attention to some of the exceptions to requiring a special event permit. Some of those are indoor special events or those kinds that are occurring on private property, livestock droving. We have cattle drives at least once a year that go through downtown. We're not requiring them to get a special event permit. Funeral processions, we're not requiring a special event permit. Those kinds of things. Picketing or other First Amendment activities, so long as they don't use vehicles, equipment, animals, fireworks, pyrotechnics, things like that. And all of those things are explained. The process for applying for a permit is also explained. What would be required stuff. And I do want to share my screen now, Ruben, to show the questions and answers, because this is where we start getting some questions that I think will help to inform some changes to this ordinance as we start going through it. So ahead of this meeting, I sent this ordinance out to everyone that was on the ad hoc committee. And then I also sent it to the trustees, and I did receive some feedback directly to me. It wasn't like there was a serial meeting. This all came to me, and I produced a document. And so this first question came from one of our special event ad hoc committee members. And it discussed, 60 days really being a long time and maybe burdensome for some of our current special events. And I give some reasoning. The reasoning for 60 days is to give staff a chance to review the application and to work out any issues to avoid a denial. But I think it might be better to have a 45-day window instead of 60. That still gives us as staff 15 days, 15 calendar days to review an application before making a decision on it. And then the proposed section 6570C 10.3 gives longstanding annual events preference in dates when an application for a special event comes in and the annual event hasn't turned theirs in yet. So let's say the BMW rally hasn't turned in their application, but another special event that's proposed turns one in for that same date. We would give preference to the one that hasn't turned in their application yet because they're a longstanding event. And so that's already been kind of written into this proposed ordinance. But I am still okay with changing the existing draft in front of you to being 45 days. I think that would make one of our ad hoc special event committee members happy. The second one that we had that came in was making an edit to change event organizer to what you see underlined on my screen. It's anyone authorized to answer for the event on the day. So I think that edit makes sense and should be considered for inclusion. So that's another edit to the draft that's in front of you for consideration. That's under paragraph the permit paragraph A1, and that's all persons working for the event organizer. And this is the addition, authorized to answer for the event on the day. Adding that would make sense to me.
Just a quick point of clarification, Administrator, when it's actually B1. 6551.
Thank you. And then the third feedback that I received was under special event permit review, paragraph C14, recommend changing it to certificate of current commercial general liability insurance or special event liability insurance, 3 working days to the event. So this kind of goes hand in hand with that first one. It makes sense to add the special event liability insurance, but I'm not, the town isn't going to require insurance to be held for 60 days, right? It's just produced as part of the application with an effective date that covers the specific event, including setup and takedown. But it would, I would be okay with, and I would say that this is really the town administrator's purview, the way that this is written. To make it at least due, that insurance certificate due 15 days before the event takes place. That way, if we don't receive it, then staff can start hounding that special event organizer to get it in, otherwise risk the suspension or revocation of their permit. So it makes sense to add that special event liability insurance piece to it. And I would be okay with saying, hey, it needs to be to us 15 days before the event. That still gives us time to go through that process that's written in the draft.
So you're looking at changing C14 III to change it from 30 to 15?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
And then the next one is under special event permit review, paragraph A14I, add or special event liability insurance. That's something I've already discussed. Makes sense to add that in. The fifth one was under special event permit review, paragraph A14.3. Given the recommended change above, the first 2 sentences are no longer necessary. This came from the special event ad hoc committee member. But here's my commentary on that. I'd really like to see the sentences remain, but with it being reduced to 15 days and that the insurance policy is only effective for the time that the special event is going on with both setup and breakdown days included. This way we have plenty of notice before a special event permit may need to be suspended or revoked, and the organizers aren't rushing to get it around a couple of days before the event. I think not everybody is as good as like the Creative Coalition or, Mr. Bushta with Cherry Days at getting things into us. And I'm trying to make this so that in the future, if there is another special event, we've got some time before I have to be the bad guy and suspend or revoke their permit. Number 6, I explained this earlier, it's capitalization. The reason I capitalize certain words within this document is because they're defined. And it's something that I've been trained to do, to look for when I'm looking at legal documents, to see if something has been capitalized, I know that it's been defined somewhere else in that ordinance or that law. Number 7, and this came from another one of our special event ad hoc committee members, specific to street closure fees and some reasoning why they're not considered. I didn't propose them to be considered for waiving. And I'm certain that these committee members are in the audience and they're happy to give their take on some things. But my reasoning for that was, it's not to discourage street closures or events that close the streets. I think that adds to our vibrant community when we do have them. But I'll just read what I have. So yes, street closure fees are still required and are not proposed for exemption by this ordinance. This is not to discourage events from being in the street, but more to make sure that participants in the street and the town are safe during the event. In town administration, unfortunately, and our police chief knows this as well, we have to think of the absolutely worst possible scenario and plan for it to make sure that we're prepared for it if it does happen and to mitigate any possible threats. And think New Orleans, January 1st, 2025, a car goes down Bourbon Street and injures and maims a bunch of people. The street closure section of the code is very specific. So that's not the special event code. That's chapter 11. It's a completely different section of code, but it is still relevant. It's very specific and has been in existence for quite some time. It would make sense to review and modify the street closure ordinance to reference the special event ordinance and to adjust fees associated with the street closure ordinance. Special event fees are what we discussed for waiver. A street closure fee is not a special event fee, although they may be included as part of a special event. There is an inherent danger in closing streets to vehicle traffic that must take more resources to make sure that the closure is done safely. I think that it would be wise to look at fees as the next step of this ad hoc committee, but without a wholesale change to the street closure ordinance, I don't see how we can legally exempt or waive fees in a new section of code for an old and established section of code like the street closure. And then this requirement is definitely something that you as the board can make a decision on. And if the street closure fees are added to waiver for special event, then staff will need to present an updated street closure ordinance as soon as possible. Another question that came up was why not include the waiver of fees as something that can be appealed? So the ordinance gives this framework for which we're trying to make this all very administrative. And so a framework for which an administrative waiver of fees could be granted. By keeping the waiver of fees in an ordinance and making it unappealable, it makes the waiver, in my opinion, objective rather than subjective. So there's all these different criteria that we as the special events ad hoc committee came up with. And so that framework provides for a 50% or $500 reduction in fees, whichever is higher. And this is specific to special event application fees, not liquor, vendor, or street closure fees. Does definition of applicant need to be single person or should it be person or organization? The definition of person also covers organization, so we should be okay with only person being within the application or applicant definition. Another one that came in was about filming. So think of this as like future proofing our ordinance. So if Hallmark wanted to come downtown and film one of their holiday movies in downtown Paonia, we've already got that framework included in the definition. So it's a placeholder for something to come. As silly as it sounds, Albion, Indiana, where one of my first posts, I put in for a movie permit like 7 years ago, and last winter they actually had Hallmark come out and make a movie. So in their downtown square. So it is something that does happen. In my post in Florida, Cobra Kai had one of their episodes filmed downtown. That was an Amazon or a Netflix series. So number 11, the definition for local nonprofit community-based organization limits such an organization as having to have its principal headquarters located within the corporate limits of Paonia. This seems overly restrictive geographically, which does apply to groups currently hosting special events, but may impose unreasonable limitations on unknown future situations for existing and other new groups. Could it instead require that nonprofits must be registered as such with the Colorado Secretary of State? So as the ad hoc special event committees talked about this kind of at length, and decided that local nonprofit community-based organizations should be specific to Paonia, and that is tied directly into how and who is eligible for a waiver or reduction in fees. And there's a relevant section of code for how we determine what is eligible for waiver or reduction in fees. And then number 12, curious about how the inclusion of block party in the definition of special event or events. I hadn't included the chief in this discussion, but as I explained earlier, with the power of the semicolon, it does cover block parties as well within this special event ordinance. And if you would like, I can go through the ordinance at length. Otherwise, I'm willing to hear questions, concerns, comments, requests for edits, anything like that.
I guess I would suggest that we just continue discussing the ordinance rather than you going through it, because I'm hoping that those of us that are here and the folks in the audience that helped put it together are familiar with it. So given all the potential changes, first of all, I know that Trustee Hunter was on the ad hoc committee and there were people in the audience that were as well. So let me turn to the trustees first for any comments or thoughts on the proposed changes, comments that went in, and then I'll open it up to public comment. Yeah,
Okay, so, I mean, for starters, I'd really like to hear public comment. That's the main thing that I would like to hear. But that being said, I'm pretty much in agreement with Administrator Wynn's assessment of most of this, and I would agree with the recommendation to have that ad hoc committee meet again to discuss fees for road closures.
Anyone else here on the dais? If not, I'll open it up to public comment. So you have 3 minutes, come up and give us your name and whether you live in town or out of town, and sign the sheet. And all right, Jess.
Hello, I'm Jess Durbin Ackerman. I'm the Executive Director of the North Fork Valley Creative Coalition, and I'm also a member of the ad hoc committee. Very excited that this is coming before the board tonight because we need new rules in place for our event season that's off and running already. So I had a couple of points. Overall, very much support what we've come up with as a committee. Some of the things have changed since we last met. And so those are some things I have some concern about or would like more discussion around, specifically around the exempting street closures from the waiver for nonprofits as part of sponsorship. That was not discussed in our ad hoc committee. That was new to me when I looked at the ordinance, and I just have been doing some calculation and thinking about our events. So the Creative Coalition puts on this year Pickin' in the Park, which is all in the park, no street closures, but Mountain Harvest Festival and the Paonia Holiday Fair both do street closures. Friday night for Mountain Harvest Fest for the street party. And then for the Paonia Holiday Art Fair, we closed down Grand Avenue for 8 to 10 hours on that Saturday in December. And we, for that event, our fees for that are street closures and vendor fees. Like, we don't rent the park, so there's nothing to be waived based on the way that the ordinance is written, that the town can't sponsor or support that event. So I was not expecting to see the street closure piece in the ordinance as something that was not part of the waiver considered. And
I hear, that was my question, that was in the Q&A to Stefan of just, I was very surprised to see that in there, and I understand that we as a committee can look at that. But it has that, like, that, those fees have been waived for the years that these events have had their fees waived, so the question of legality, like, that is the precedent that has been set, and I'm not saying that we need to follow that necessarily, but I just want to bring that up as, okay, I guess I'm gonna be done. Okay, the other thing I wanted to bring up is the local nonprofit definition. Maybe in Delta County, I don't think we decided specifically on people that only are based in the town of Van yet. What if the North Fork Valley Creative Coalition has an office in Hotchkiss? We don't have an office right now. Does that mean we don't get to have our fees waived anymore? And then the other point I wanted to bring up is that I would like to be considered that vendors that don't sell anything at events don't count as vendors towards having to pay a vendor fee. So if a nonprofit is doing info only at an event, that wouldn't count towards our total number of vendors that we would have to pay $10 per vendor for. Thank you.
Thanks. Who else?
Hi, my name is Delaney Rudy and I live in town, 829 Grand Avenue. I'd like to express support for this new ordinance for special event sponsorship and remote fees. Local special events, especially those hosted by local nonprofit community organizations, offer great value to citizens and visitors alike and are central to our community culture. Small community-based nonprofits should have municipal support to use their resources for the benefit of the communities they serve, rather than use those resources to pay fees. I'd also like to second the proposal to remove the exception for road closures. I think that was well stated, and we can get into that more. And the vendor fee as well. I also would urge the trustees to consider creating a pathway for fully waiving fees and offering full financial relief for community-centered events that benefit the public good. I know that would be kind of complicated trying to define what sort of events those are, but I think about having this meeting tonight might even get better civic engagement if you did it at the farmers market. So I think that the amount of public good that provides to the community is difficult to quantify. And I know that you guys have a budget to worry about, but I think in terms of equitable use of resources, I think it's an important thing to consider. So I'll write my name on this paper and thanks.
Thank you. Who else? The audience that would like to speak on this topic? You can sign in later, just whatever helps you think. If you
I'm Marian. We spoke last month when I was applying for sponsorship for farmers market. I'm the manager of the other farmers market. I'm actually just coming from farmers market. So appreciate this time. And yeah, I'm here tonight to just express my support for the proposed special event ordinance, particularly provisions that allow for the town to sponsor community events by waiving fees. Events like the Arbor Farmers Night Market, like Cherry Days and Mount Harvest Festival, they're the heartbeat of our town, and they create meaningful spaces for connection, and they drive foot traffic to local businesses, they generate tax revenue, attract visitors, they highlight all the things that make our community special, and they're the kinds of events that other towns support, and I'd like to see ours too. Yeah, I'd like to see the board of trustees adopt the ordinance this evening, apply it retroactively to the farmers market, which has already begun. And yeah, I would also like to see the town take a step further to establish their path for potentially fully waiving fees for certain community events that really need support. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, wow.
So I'm Bob Woods. I'm part of the the special event committee, and I'm also in the resident here. Specifically on this local nonprofit community-based organization. I first read through it. I was just thinking personally, it didn't affect me much, but specifically it reads a nonprofit entity with its principal headquarters located within the corporate limits of the town of Paonia. I would like to propose that we maybe consider a nonprofit entity with its principal headquarters located within the county of Delta, so Delta County. Let me give you a couple reasons for that. One of which is the Chamber of Commerce recently just stood back up here locally. But there was a period of time when our Chamber of Commerce was located in Delta because we were paired up with Delta Chamber of Commerce. And that was a nonprofit entity that was helping support the town of Paonia. So I think it's important to kind of expand those limits. I certainly appreciate what she said about their headquarters being located in Hotchkiss. I'd like to see where that would be an issue. I also want to point out that the current Smith Center board, the original Paonia Youth Center, as run by Alan Smith, was a nonprofit organization. And then after Alan's passing and the new board taking over, that nonprofit status lapsed. We haven't felt the need to put it back in place. And I have a way around it in that most of the Smith Center board members are also Family Alliance members. Guess what? They're a nonprofit and they're in good standing, so I can make all that work. However, I do like the idea of looking at Delta County as a whole when we look at nonprofits. So, and I would like the town administrator's comment with regard to maybe expanding that to Delta County. Thank you.
All night again, I do live in town, and since all of our block party people have left, I'm wondering if we should just cross the block party part out of this and have it as a separate entity that you all talked about, like you mentioned you were gonna talk about. And maybe just because if they don't earn any money, they're not selling anything, so they're not really an event that way. That most of the stuff that looks like, I didn't read it. It was too fast, but there was something about earning money and I don't know. Anyway, I don't think it should be included in the events portion of this. It should have its own thing.
Thank you.
Do I sign a PN?
No, I don't think you need to sign again, correct? She doesn't need to sign again. The book, that book, but yeah. Good work, okay. Anyone else in the room? And no hands on Zoom? Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. So I'll turn it back to the trustees and Administrator Nguyen to discuss as you wish.
Is our goal tonight to make a decision? And if so, could we take each of the things one by one and have a discussion
And
and make a decision?
I'm certainly open to that. It makes sense. And when you say one by one, are you thinking the comments that we were provided in the email? In addition to, there were I know there was one new issue brought up about vendors who are not selling something to not be have to pay a fee, which was not in here. Anyway.
Good question. So in my mind, it's the street closures. Should they be exempted from the sponsorship? 2, does it have to be a Paonia-based nonprofit? 3, I am interested in the vendors that don't sell anything, and do they have to pay a vendor fee? Those are the 3 issues that I think that we could, that I see. Do you see any others?
I mean, like I said, I agreed with some of the recommendations where Town Administrator Nguyen had agreed with Mr. Bush's recommendations. But yeah, to me, those are the 3 things that definitely warrant discussion.
And I might add, the thought was to take block parties out of the special events as well. As another, I think that's worthy of discussion too, personally, since it came up previously. Yes. Okay, trustee Stelter?
Yeah, the vendor's not selling anything. I believe the vendor fee is $10. I don't think that's overly onerous.
Stefan's also.
Yeah, go ahead, Stefan.
Yeah, I want to discuss that a little bit. So we're not talking about fees right now, right? That is coming from a resolution. We don't even define vendor. So this is just a framework. So if we're going to consider not, for informational booths like the Paonia Tree Board at Cherry Days, right, has their informational booth. That's something we can decide when we get to the point of making an application. And then when we go to discuss vendor fees, what would be considered something that would generate that vendor fee? So I don't necessarily think that one is ready to be talked about here, but we should do it later. I do want to talk about the local nonprofit. I really think that we should keep it within the Paonia town limits, or at the very maximum, the 81428 zip code. What I don't want to see, and I think most people in that audience wouldn't want to see, is a nonprofit from Mesa County coming to Paonia to host an event, destroying our parks or using it to an over excess, and then not having to pay any fees. I think it just makes sense that if we're going to waive fees, that it be for a nonprofit with a principal headquarters somewhere in Paonia. And that's where I'll leave it at that. It is your decision to make.
Getting back to taking them one at a time. Do you want to start with the big one? Which is the big one? Street closures? Sure. Sure.
Well, I just feel like, we could just knock off the vendor fee because I think Stefan addressed it, like in my mind, that's off the list, we'll come back to that. Can we just stick with Paonia because he just gave comments on that? And then it's a list.
So then, street closure?
Well, no, just, if we could stick with, should it be a Paonia nonprofit within the 81428? Because that's what town administrator Wynn just gave comments on.
Okay.
And then we can keep it grouped together.
Okay, so you want to open discussion to that? Okay.
Me personally?
Yes.
I have to say, I think I like the idea of having it be the 81428 zip code. I think that's fair because when I think about, if other nonprofits from other areas came here, it just wouldn't feel quite right to have town sponsor that. So I'd be in favor of not corporate Paonia, but 81428 Paonia.
I just have a question. When I read it, it seemed to me that you don't necessarily get your fee waived. Isn't that discretionary? That just because you come in for a special permit application doesn't mean you get up to $500 waived, is that correct?
Well, that was one of the criteria for being considered for a fee waiver, is that you're a local nonprofit headquartered in Paonia.
But so
it's just a fee waiver.
It's just a fee waiver, but someone else, another nonprofit, any
Could
other
still host an
nonprofit,
event,
they just don't get the
wouldn't
waiver. Okay, thank you. Other comments on that issue?
But the fee waiver is a case by case consideration by the administrator.
As long as they meet the criteria, because I think one of the things that the ad hoc committee wanted, it was something that these event coordinators could count on, right? So it's not it's if they check these boxes, if they meet this criteria, they get the maximum of $500 or 50% of the appropriate fees waived.
But someone coming in from Delta can have a special event permit. There is just no consideration of fee waiver.
As it's currently right.
Okay.
Okay.
You want-
And then street closures. There's nothing
Do you
else.
feel like you want to do a motion on each item so that, is there an anticipation of, if you want to approve this ordinance tonight?
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. Can I speak?
Yes, go right ahead. Of course you can.
I know that there are sticking points and things that we need addressed, but I think there's overwhelming drive to get this approved tonight. Because it's needed, it's needed yesterday. That being said, I think if we can go through, because I'm redlining the ordinance based on everything we've discussed, so I'll be prepared to make a motion when the time comes. So I like where this is going, just discussing these so I can make notes, so I know where I'm gonna get buy-in on my motion or not.
What I was wondering is if the motion should be done individually as the topic gets decided, to make it easier perhaps for revising the ordinance. So that's all I'm suggesting.
Okay.
Multiple motions rather than trying to accommodate so many changes potentially. So would somebody like to make a motion on the geographic area to, I mean, at this point, it's in there as is. So there was some discussion of changing it. So maybe a motion might be needed to not change it, or whichever.
And it says in the definition of local nonprofit community-based organization, principal headquarters located within the
It's on page 97 of the packet.
81428 zip code. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to revise ordinance, the draft of ordinance 2025-03 under the definition of local nonprofit community-based organization to strike corporate limits of the town of Paonia and insert 81428 zip code.
I second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I did not hear any nays. That passes unanimously. Okay.
The A14, that goes all the way out to Stewart Mesa, halfway there.
81428.
Well, that's that, I had 81428, 5 miles out of town. That's equal distance from the two grocery stores, one of the high schools. I mean, there's a lot of parties out there.
Well, I think the thought is that if the organizations that are here, they may not have their office in town. It says
Point
primary.
of order, I'm sorry, it's already been.
Okay,
voted on.
you're right, you're right.
It's getting late.
You're right.
I have another motion to make.
Okay.
I'd like to move that we change the draft ordinance 2025-03, section 6550, section A, and strike 60 days and revise that to read 45 days prior to the date on which the special event is to be held.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion
Like to make
passes.
another motion.
Yes, keep going.
I move to amend the draft ordinance 2025-03, section 6550B1 to add after event organizer the language authorized to answer for the event. So that would read the name, address, and telephone number of the event organizer and all persons working for the event organizer authorized to answer for the event on the day of the special event to ensure adequate communication between the town and the event organizer and designees.
I'll second.
Any discussion needed? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Shall I keep going?
Yes, I'd say go away.
I move to amend draft of ordinance 2025-03, section 6570, number 14. Oh, yep, sorry. 6570C, 14. To read, the applicant must provide, when required, a certificate of current commercial general liability insurance or special event liability insurance due at least 15 days prior to the event. Period.
I'll second that.
Hearing no discussion, correct? All in favor?
Aye.
Move to amend draft ordinance 2025-036570 C14I to insert or special event liability between the existing words liability and insurance.
I second.
It's on page 103. Where are you? A14?
C14I, so it would read the commercial general liability or special event liability insurance coverage, blah, 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 blah.
Okay. Seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Move to amend ordinance, draft ordinance 2025-036570 C14II to delete 30 and replace with 15.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
So that is the easy one. So now we are at the street closure. So my 2 cents worth on that before I make a motion. My thought would be to refer that back to the ad hoc committee to work on the fees for that. I understand that historically we've waived fees, but I'm not in favor of including the street closure fee in the fee waivers. That's my personal 2 cents.
There's some issues on some of the blocks, like Niagara can't be, you can't close the blocks. You know, the state ordinance about, and it's a state law, you can't stop business from going. And Niagara's got like Reedy's and Cross Hotel, they don't have any place to shut down to have a block.
And just so you know, the street closure ordinance is pretty prescriptive on on those sorts of things. That would not be allowed based on the way the code's written.
It's a non-block party
Right.
block.
Right, well, that's where the street closure is important in terms of looking at it potentially for block parties. Simply because it does consider what streets could be closed safely.
And which
So,
streets can't.
no, not not specifically, but I think it gets at that.
But there's state laws.
Right, but at this point, I think it's, well, we haven't gotten to the block party part of the, of this ordinance, but,
yeah.
So Trustee Hunter, you're suggesting that the way the ordinance is currently written could stay as such in terms of approval, and that the fee structure could be looked at separately? Is that what you're thinking?
That is my 2 cents worth. I am not in agreement with including the street closure fees in the waiver portion of the ordinance. But I think the ad hoc committee should continue to discuss special events fees and fees for street closures, because we're already meeting to talk about block parties.
Administrator Nguyen, since this was one you had quite a bit of a response to, do you have any input on that? And do I see a hand up?
Rick is.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that was a thumb up? Okay, sorry. So Administrator Nguyen, I just want to give you any opportunity you might like to talk about this at all.
Yeah, I really think it's the issue that we're hearing is that it's fee related, and those fees can be pretty high, and so it just makes sense to have our ad hoc committee take a look at those fees. I do want to say that I know we're going to look at block parties as well, but you know, this ordinance already gives us that framework for permitting a block party. And if we look at chapter 11 that talks about street closures, as they relate to block parties, you cannot close a truck route. And so that's like 2nd Street, Main Street, those areas we cannot close. And I wouldn't propose that we tried to close those. So I don't know if that helps. It's 10:45 here. I'm exhausted, so I'm hoping this hurries along. Sorry.
With that, Trustee Hunter, anybody else have any discussion points on that? I know we got a thumbs up from Trustee Stelter. If everybody's okay, we'll entertain a motion from Trustee Hunter.
Yeah, I have a motion about the ad hoc committee and the fees before I have a motion to approve the ordinance, but yeah, so I move to refer to the special events ad hoc committee to report back to the BOT with recommendations for adjusting special event fees associated with street closures.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey. Can I do another one?
Yes.
I move to approve amended ordinance 2025-03 as discussed.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. We have an ordinance. It only has to be published by title.
Can I please just ask, I know this is not like decorum, but I'm hoping that maybe staff and the two community members of our ad hoc committee can have a quick powwow just on dates, and then we can get a doodle poll out, because I know it's really hard to get all of us in the same room together.
Well, why don't we have, if somebody would make a motion
Move
for a 5-minute break? Break. Oh, yeah, Stefan? You want to say night-night? Oh, no.
I do. May I be excused? I'll make my calendar available, but I am exhausted. It's almost 11 PM.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. All right,
Good night.
bye-bye.
Okay, 5-minute reset. Oh, did we make a motion and second that?
I just made a motion. I don't think it went any
I
farther.
said.
Okay, all in favor of a 5-minute recess?
Aye.
Okay, back at 8:55. Thank you. We will get to our final item before the executive session, and the item is consideration of approval of accepting the proposal service agreement from New Focus HR LLC for complete redesign and development of a legally compliant employee handbook and continuing human resources consultation services. And I will turn this over to Clerk Benner. Right? Yeah. Right?
Yeah, so this is necessary. We've needed to do it for a while, and things being what they are, we have not had time to really delve into it, so we've been dealing with HR as it comes. And so we know enough to know that our employee handbook needs some work. There are things in there that just don't apply anymore. And I'm still training, so having somebody who is not and knows legal ins and outs, that's actually gonna throw it together and then let us edit it as we go, it's a great idea. Seven has actually worked with this group before. They are familiar with municipalities. They would be studying our state laws. I know they're Indiana based, so that's it, but they're already a multi-state. They already have multi-state clients. So we're not gonna be the first one. I met with her and I think we met for about an hour, talking about what the process would look like, where the research would come from on their side. And it's really well planned out. And we could realistically have a new personnel handbook ready in a little over 3 months. And then they'll keep updating it, because as we know, laws change all the time, and as things come up, so that would be nice to have somebody who is, that's their job. It's their job to push out those things and keep track of them. And then there's also the option of anything HR related that starts to get really sticky, we can call them, and we have their consulting services as well. So to do best practices, legally compliant things. I thought I was gonna research all this and write it, but if we wanted to wait 10 years for a new employee handbook, that might work, but I'm thinking this is probably a better way to go. So.
Okay. Questions for Clerk Benner? Yes, Trustee Hunter.
Only question, do we have room in the budget for it?
Yes. Cool. Yes.
Okay, I love it, I love it, I love it. My only question is, just so we follow our policies for sole sourcing or sole proprietor, like how come we're not putting this out to bid? And I hate slowing processes down, but.
Oh, no, I understand.
Yeah.
I had her fill out the stuff, and then I had to ask Stefan if that met the criteria for sole source, so we could go with it, and he said I could put it in front of you guys, so. He knows the ins and outs of that purchasing policy better than I do. I'm not gonna sit here and try and pretend I know the ins and outs.
Yeah, and I appreciate that we made, that the effort was made for asking the questions, because that's part of it. I think the part that I just get hung up on is there enough proprietary things, like people who write employee manuals? There's a lot out there, and maybe who have Colorado experience a bit more. So that's my hang up. And at the same point, I think, oh gosh, let's just get it done. The price is so reasonable. I don't want to extend the process, but I feel like I have to bring that up.
And I can say the fact that they have experience with municipalities was a big deal to me, because even though ADP had a little bit of experience, man, getting our payroll set up was insane. So I've kind of learned the hard way when you start working with people who maybe haven't worked with a lot of governments or local governments too. It's important to have that experience. I get what you're saying, and if you guys want me to shoot it out, I will absolutely shoot it out. I have no problem with that, but that was a big draw for me, because it can really slow things down trying to explain to people how local government works when they're not familiar with it.
Yeah, it's just on the financing, that 7,500, is that a yearly charge, or is that just a one-time fee?
One time. That's just one time for the first part, where they create the employee handbook. The processes that are outlined in there is they take all of our existing policies, all of our stuff, including standard operating procedure stuff for the police department. They work on it for 8 weeks, doing the Colorado law thing, doing everything. They put it all together and then it comes back to us. And then the first step is we go to department heads. We all review it. We look at things that work in there. Maybe there's policies in there that don't apply to us. We go from there, we send it back for edits, and then it goes down to the next step. So I think it's like 3 steps total before it comes in front of the board for final adoption. But that $7,500 covers that whole process right there.
Sounds like a lot of work.
And I'm assuming that's allocated, that 7,500 we allocated across the many water, sewer, trash, et
Because we have
cetera.
employees and all.
Right, right. Any other questions? Trustee Stelter, do you have any other questions?
No, ma'am.
I have a couple questions for Clay, our attorney. And were you okay with the indemnification section on page? I didn't know if it was pretty standard. It's number 10 on page 117.
Yeah, it's a standard one-way indemnification that is, protects the company only. Typically, I advise against indemnification clauses like this, or we'd go back and request that we have at least some language in there that includes a reverse indemnification, meaning that they also indemnify us against any acts that they might take that would create a claim of action against them or the town.
Do you feel that's necessary in this case, since there's no people actually meeting?
There's no people. It is a very low risk situation. Typically, when we use anybody else's agreement, I like to introduce our town contractual addendum. It's like a supplement that has the requirements that Colorado requires for local government entities, and it just kind of covers our bases as far as a couple other things that aren't here. I didn't review this until earlier today, but I did send email response and suggest that we use our supplement, because it would include indemnification, it would include unauthorized workers, it includes the independent contractor language that Colorado requires. So, regardless of who, in another section, they, request application of Indiana law, which would have to happen in, Indiana court, obviously. And so that's, one of the other issues, but it's not a deal breaker. It's just not, it's not fair language.
So your recommendation is that the addendum that you would attach that Colorado requires on contracts be sent back to them for their review to say, so tonight, if the trustees approve this, we're going to ask them to review the addendum that's normally attached to Colorado municipalities' contracts?
That's up to the board. I do suggest that we, at least if we're going to use an independent or, a contract that's written unilaterally by a third party, I always advise that we use our supplemental town contract, because it covers all the required bases that we would need to if
okay.
And same thing like so even with the insurance, Colorado, the RCGIA has increased the $1 million threshold. And so that's some exposure there as well. And so there's all sorts of little things that kind of go into this. I'm not saying that it's, again, I think it's very little risk. We're talking about a piece of code rewrite, and there's no hammers being thrown around, or like you said, there's no people. It would be very difficult for someone to get hurt in the performance of this contract, but there are some requirements that I think are, would be advisable here.
Okay. Well, okay, good. That's good to know, because when I read it, again, it's not like I know contracts, but there were a few pieces that Indiana law, the county of Hamilton seemed a little odd to me. So your recommendation is that the town proposed to include the addendum that you would normally have for a Colorado for a contract. Okay, am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
So let me pull that up real quick. I just sent the email, so it won't be hard to find.
Okay, well,
What I ask is what I ask always is to include the municipal addendum, which has other clauses that are not in here, which have the waiver, no waiver of governmental immunity. We have our Tabor clause, which isn't included in this either. That's the Article 10, Section 20 Tabor requirement. We have our affirmative action clause, employment of unauthorized workers, no waiver of rights, our limitation of damages citing CGIA, and then we have our governing law and venue and enforcement, which is Colorado typically, because even though they're an Indiana company, the performance is going to be technically in Colorado because they're rewriting our code, and then just an assignment and severability clause. And so I've sent that to Samara for a review, and she has it. So my suggestion is that we go back to them and say, what parts of this municipal contractual addendum does not work for you and why? And then if they, refuse to accept any part of it, then, we need to have a discussion about whether or not we want to go forward with this company.
okay, so it sounds like this might not be quite right for decision-making tonight.
It's not perfect. Like I said, I think it's very low risk. And I don't want to, if this is something that is time is of the essence, and this is, an incredible bid and the town doesn't want to miss out, it's certainly not gonna, I don't think it's gonna have great exposure for the town, but it is far from a perfect, or even in multiple places there's missing pieces.
Okay, so if it were approved tonight, just speculating, and they didn't agree to those things, we would be back to the drawing board and having to either a new contract to be approved or a new contractor.
I mean, that's up to the board. I think I wouldn't say you have to do that. I think we should maybe, if you like this bid and I think you can approve it contingent on them adopting the required provisions, at least of our municipal addendum. A couple of those, the venue is not a requirement, but for example, like the Tabor really has to be in there. If we do this and somehow run out of funds, then we have to be able to say, like, sorry, we can't, we cannot appropriate funds from next year that we haven't budgeted yet. So, there are certain things that really need to be addressed. But with the value here and, with the low cost and the, and the low risk, I don't see why the company wouldn't, take on some of those required provisions. But if they don't, then yeah, we would need to discuss the risk and go forward without it.
All right, well, thank you for that, and the trustees can take that under advisement. Yes. Oh, and hang on one second, Trustee Stelter, I'll have you comment. I just wanted to bring up two things. The address given for the client does not have our PO box, so that should be updated, and there needs to be a signature line for the mayor on this as well. So Trustee Stelter.
Yeah, I see this as a very low risk thing, and I agree with our attorney. And I'd like to, if there's no more discussion, I'd like to make a motion.
Any other discussion from any of the trustees? Let me just offer up, anybody in the public have a comment on this? Okay, all right.
I don't feel like I have a good answer to the sole source request. Attorney Buchner, can you answer that? Like, based on what you know of our purchasing policy manual, did we meet the requirements? I'm just looking at it right now. Apologies.
I did not see the RFP or the request. I was only asked to review the contract. So I would have to go back and look at the
So for-
RFP and
There wasn't an RFP, and that's Mayor Pro Tem Schwartz is asking why there wasn't an RFP. And at the very tail end of the packet were our answers to the questions that I believe our purchasing policy asks, right? Trustee Vetter? Yes. Those are the 5 or 4 or 5 questions, or 6.
Okay, I
Yeah,
think
no,
this
you-
is good.
yeah, go.
So when to use an RFP? An RFP may be used when the town's requirements are not precisely defined or quantified. RFPs are required to be used when it is necessary to obtain the services of professional consultants, blah, 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 when the contract for service is expected to exceed 50,000.
How much?
50,000. And then sole source, the sole source request to proceed policy should be followed for purchases $10,001 and greater when a competitive solicitation process will not be used.
Oh, so this is under that threshold?
Sorry, Steph, I would have been able to answer that better
I
for you
know,
guys.
yeah. So we did follow our processes here. I mean, I think because it's I think we're following them, and the questions were asked as defined. I'm gonna remove my
Okay,
my
good.
question.
Good, good, glad you checked.
Thank you for this very handy reference material.
I wish I could claim that one, but I can't.
Yeah, so trustee Stelter made a motion, correct? Or you were ready
I'm
to?
ready to.
Okay, I say go.
Okay. Okay, here we go. I move to approve a proposal agreement for services with New Focus HR LLC for the creation of an employee handbook, update subscription, and HR consulting services with the addendum needed for Colorado state compliance.
Motion is, you got the motion? Okay,
I'll second.
all right. We have a motion with a second.
Before we, can we make sure that that's good enough for Attorney Buckner? Does that motion cover what you need there?
Was it contingent on the municipal addendum? Is that?
Yes.
That's all I'm requesting.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yes, thank you.
And then before you guys vote, two of the steps that I did mention is anything before it comes to you is also going to be reviewed by not only CERSA, but our town attorney too. So if that makes you guys feel better as well.
Yeah, and also just for the record as well, so that you have that reference, paragraph 2-5, subparagraph 4 of our purchasing policy manual is what allows for service contracts of $10,000 or less not to go to a formal bid.
Thank you, thank you. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, that motion passes. I believe it was unanimous. Okay. All right, we are now moving on to our portion of, yes.
Question, how long do we anticipate this being? Do we need to extend the meeting by 15 minutes?
We probably should extend the meeting.
This was Attorney Buckner's request, this executive session. So I would ask him, I would say you're probably going to want to extend it.
Yeah. Clay, does that seem reasonable to extend the meeting?
You're muted.
Oh, we only have 15 minutes left of our normal meeting ending time.
Yeah, I mean, the substance itself isn't going to take that long. It just takes a few minutes to get into an executive session. Insofar that you want to go into the executive session to receive the legal advice versus getting the advice in an open forum, then, you know, it's gonna take a few minutes just to
Okay.
transfer
Move to
over.
extend the meeting.
So,
Sorry.
Yeah, we're gonna extend the meeting.
Move to extend the meeting by 30 minutes.
So it would be extended to
And the
10?
latest.
10 at the latest. Do you feel like that's enough time, Clay?
more than enough, yes.
Okay, all right.
I'll
Second,
second that.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right now, we need a motion to go into executive session.
Does it have to be worded particularly?
Yes.
I also will need a Zoom meeting link, please.
Trustee Stelter, you'll have a pop-up on your screen asking you to go into a breakout room. You just need to accept it.
Thank you much.
Okay, I'll move to enter an executive session under CRS 24-6-4024B for the purposes of receiving legal advice from the town attorney on specific legal questions in reference to the rejection of an initiative petition on short-term rentals.
We have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We will now be adjourning to executive session. We're not adjourning, we're just moving.
Outside the original one.
Okay. The time is now 9:31. Seven. These reading glasses will help me. And the executive session has been concluded. The participants in the executive session were Clerk Vetter, Attorney Clay Buchner, Trustee Hunter, Mayor Pro Tem Schwartz, Trustee Heck, Trustee Check, Trustee Stelter, and myself. For the record, if any person who participated in the executive session believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into the executive session, or that any improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of the Open Meetings Law, I would ask that you state your concerns for the record. Okay. Seeing none, I move to adjourn this meeting. Okay, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.